everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are unboxing and trying out some new art supplies that I got over the past weeks. I filmed this a while back and this is going to be the first time that we're going to try either of these. The first one is this beautiful sketchbook from Quiversmiths, which I will be linking on Instagram. I've been wanting one of their sketchbooks for a long time, but it's sort of a treat that I got this finally because I know I really do not need a new sketchbook. But I just wanted to get this one as a treat for myself. It's been a while since I bought art supplies. Mostly I've been using the ones that I have or have been sent to me, so this is actually a really exciting package to have. And by the way, the packaging was gorgeous. I actually kept the wax seal that came on the sketchbook because I thought it was gorgeous. They also gave me a freebie, which is a mixing palette. And of course, this one was also gorgeous. By the way, I think they packaged this before they knew I do reviews, so this could be a freebie they give out to bigger orders like this one. Either way, it was really highly appreciated. I always wanted one that would complement my little flower mixing palette, and this sort of reminds me of that, so I just think it's so cute. When I got to choose the paper that was going to be used for the sketchbook, I chose arch paper because I've never tried it, and I also wanted the sketchbook to be something very premium feeling, something that I would enjoy keeping my paintings on. This one was actually inspired by one of Jane Betta's sketchbooks where she did a flip through of them, which was all just filled with these beautiful finished paintings, and I wanted something like that. One thing about this sketchbook is that it doesn't lay flat, and so it was the one thing that really held me back from ordering before. But I asked Jane if hers laid flat because I wanted one that was the size of hers, and she said that it doesn't, but because of the size you don't really notice it as much as if it was smaller. And so I just went ahead and got this one, and it really does make a difference because while I did have to hold it down when I did the sketch, after a while it wasn't really as constricting as I thought it would be, not being able to be laid flat like that. And especially since we're still on the first page of the sketchbook, I believe it's just going to be better. Drawing on this paper was as easy as how you would expect from a cotton paper. I think there's always just going to be that constricted feeling when I'm drawing on very rough paper. In some ways it's good because it keeps my sketches light and clean, which is a need for watercolors. Sometimes you just want to be free in your sketches, and these very rough papers aren't gonna help a lot with that. What it does best is when you start painting with it, and it's always such a joy to paint on cotton paper. It's something that it's also really hard to explain, but there's this quality to it that holds on to the watercolors that's just also lays it down so beautifully that I just always suggest to try out cotton paper if you haven't, especially if you're just starting out and you want to do these full finished watercolor pieces. Make sure you don't skimp out on your paper. I 100% believe the papers are more important than the paints when you're starting out because it sort of equalizes the experience between student quality watercolors versus professional ones. I think where the differences is going to be is mostly in how the colors are going to age, whether they're light fast or not. But the experience as you're doing it, as you're painting on the paper, it's really not that different. And that's why I really wanted, if I was going to have a sketchbook with fully done pieces, like what I was thinking for this one, I would need it to have the best paper there is. And arch paper is always the standard when you hear people talk about the best watercolor paper there is. But if I'm being completely honest, I actually don't notice that much of a difference between this and the Fabriano Artistico paper that I used before. So maybe there are more brands out there that can compete with it. But they are both pretty expensive, so I'm not even sure that's gonna matter as much. The watercolors that I'm using I was so incredibly excited to get. I actually got these ones when Paul Rubens asked me to try their 4th generation watercolors and their oil pastels, and I saw this in their shop and I was really intrigued by the packaging, so I just went ahead and ordered it with that. So I think that there may be one of those sister companies like Artix, but they were sold in the official store for Paul Rubens, so I guess they're maybe related in a way. But I've always wanted these sets. If you look at the packaging, it's just gorgeous. The colors on it are absolutely beautiful. I didn't even care if these paints were going to be light fast. I just wanted the colors in the artworks that's in the packaging to be accurate. That's really all that I wanted for this set. And so these are meant to be a small set of colors that would be identical to some of the colors that are used in famous Chinese paintings. So I was really intrigued by that, and I got this one. But the very first thing that I noticed was the colors don't match the swatches at all. I was so butthurt by that because it's probably the only selling point they had, and they didn't nail it. In the packaging, you can see these gorgeous muted colors, and the paints themselves, they aren't that muted, but they actually are gorgeous colors. When I step back and look at the swatches, the colors are beautiful. But yeah, the colors themselves were a little bit disappointing because they weren't accurate. But the photo that I'm painting, I think, just really took advantage of exactly what kind of colors were in the set. I don't know if you guys caught this one, but I actually drew this in with markers before. I was just really impressed by this photo, and I really wanted to capture it in an artwork. I wasn't even sure if I was going to do it in gouache, in markers, or in watercolors. So this is my second try, and I think that I've finally got it right. I started out with some very muted grays on her face before I contrasted that with very sharp and colorful hair strands that are framing her face. I keep on talking about my brushes, but I really like how they bring out the movement in her hair strands. One of my favorite things to do with these brushes is doing hair strands on them because they're just so precise, but they're very flexible, so they're great for doing hair strands. And the hair in this photo is always what stumped me in my first tries of painting or drawing it, and I'm just so happy with how they turned out here. And especially using the brushes that I designed, this whole painting just feels like an achievement for me. I also really wanted to bring out the duality of the colors that were present in the set. So it's a lot of very dark and moody colors with some very bright and almost opaque warm colors. So I really love that about the set. It's one thing for me to complain about the colors not matching the description or the swatches in the package, but it's a completely different thing when it comes to how I actually feel about these colors. I actually think that they're very well curated. You can see how gorgeously these warm oranges look on top of the grays that I've put in for the initial shadows. I think they complement each other really well. I also really like how the colors themselves performed. They're very unpredictable in that some colors, like especially the lighter ones, they're very opaque, while the dark ones are a little bit more transparent and intense. So the set itself sort of feels moody to me, and it's actually something that I really like. It feels like a set that is meant to be a novelty, just like the ones from Prima Confections, where they're not meant to be your one watercolor set because they're not going to be very versatile, but what they're supposed to be, they do really well. It reminds me of that, I think, is what they're going for. I just think that the execution wasn't that well done. All of that being said, this audio and this review was recorded way after I was done with the painting. Now I can look back and see the set more objectively as opposed to my instinctive feelings when I first started it. But now I can see the set is beautiful. It does need a little bit of caution in that these aren't light fast. The reviews of them in general aren't that great. This is a precaution for you guys, but I really do still like the colors that they have. They have a couple of colors which I don't have in any other one of my sets, and I can already imagine myself using those for certain kinds of paintings. But yeah, in general, it just didn't deliver with what it was marketed as. Other than that, I really love how this painting turned out. Me painting the background is really where this painting feels like it's coming to life. I had so much to say about these colors, but they look absolutely gorgeous in this background. I wet it with water before I lay down the colors because I wanted to see how they will flow across the paper, and just all of these elements of this painting work together in creating this background. This is only the initial layer, but I am already hyping it up. But just look at how gorgeously these orangey browns mix in with the grayish greens of this set. These are actually gorgeous colors, and especially with the paper that I'm laying them down on. If this was a different kind of paper, it wouldn't look the same. And even if I was using hot pressed paper, these colors wouldn't hold this well, because the water in the consistency would just blow them out. And it's not just a brand thing. Even within the same brand, if I was using cotton paper from the same brand, it would look different if I had done this painting on hot pressed paper versus cold pressed ones. With cold pressed papers, it just has this very nice quality to the paints and how it holds onto it and spreads it out without making it look like the water is pushing everything in a way. It just still looks like it's paint on your paper, and that is what's holding everything in, and it's not just being carried away by the water. Favorite things about this watercolors is the darkest colors. I love how I can't tell which colors I'm using until I water them down. You look at my palette, it almost looks like I'm using 3 different blacks, but it's actually one very red black, one I think greenish black, and those are just my favorite kinds of watercolors, when they're so dark that you don't really see what they look like until you water them down. It's just so exciting for me to use these kinds of colors. The idea behind this painting is actually to let her hair be the main thing that catches the eye. I want most of the movement in the painting to be just on her hair, and that's why I started with very warm and light colors on her hair before I framed it with these very dark colors on the set. The colors on her face and her hair are actually the same. That's going to be repeated throughout the whole painting, but just done very subtly so that they bring the other colors out. I wanted there to be some very dark elements to her hair strands, so they really bring out the movement in her hair. But I didn't want to bring too much attention to her face, actually. And so that's why her face is one of the last things that I will be drawing. I just wanted to make sure that I have the right values on her face. I didn't even want to focus too much on her features and making them accurate. I just wanted to get the emotion right and then move on to the rest of the painting. When I really study it, I actually don't think that the face is very accurate, and maybe it's a little bit disproportionate, but I still really like how the painting turned out because it's not the focus of the piece. This one still ended up being one of my more recent favorite paintings, which is a really refreshing thing to say because usually I hyper focus on the face, and that's not the case for this one. For her shirt, I'm actually trying to remember if I used another kind of black for her shirt, because one thing I really wanted to do was bring out the flow of her hair strands by making sure I'm using very dark colors for her shirt and the background. So I think I just used the black that was in the set. I do remember thinking that if it didn't lay down smoothly, I could also use a dark gouache. I don't think I actually did end up using gouache. So I'm looking at the finished piece and it didn't dry very even. It had this very rough patterns that you normally see with dark colors in watercolors. It's very hard to get an opaque and even lay down of black when you're using watercolors, so I don't think I used any other colors. But I was still really impressed by the darker colors in this set, especially with how they mingle with the light ones. So you can see on the lighter parts of her shirt where it's hit by light, I would use some oranges with the blacks, like on her shoulder, and some on her sleeve. And those colors just work together really well. I really like how these paints behaved for this piece. One other thing about this piece that I really enjoyed while I was painting it is it was very instinctive. As much as I already tried to do this particular photo with other mediums, I actually didn't think out what I was going to do for this one that much. All I knew was I needed to use very dark colors for her shirt in the background, so they bring up her hair. That's those hair strands. I wanted them to be the focus of the piece. And so other than that, I just had a lot of fun doing this painting. Towards the middle, where I still wasn't happy with her face, but I was happy with everything else, is where I told myself that once again, I didn't need to post this. If it turns out good, then that would be great, and I will definitely be showing it to you guys. But also, if it doesn't, there's no pressure for me to show it to anyone. I just needed to make sure that I was enjoying it, and I definitely was. There's just a special feeling when I'm painting with watercolors versus any other medium. I think it's more freeing because it's a lot less physical strain on your body. Just because they don't take as long to make as with gouache. They don't strain your wrist as much as if you were drawing, especially with colored pencils. But yeah, it's just such a joy always to paint with watercolors, and especially if you're using art supplies that you know and rely on, and even new ones that are exciting to you. There's just no other feeling like that. But yeah, that will be it for all of my thoughts on this painting. There's a lot more to go after, but I'm just gonna let you guys enjoy the process without me talking. I just want to thank you guys for watching. I want to thank my patrons for always supporting me. I'm always so thankful for you guys. If you're interested in the brushes that I'm using, they're still available on the Craftamo website. The same with the sketchbook. I think they're still taking commissions. But yeah, all of the links, including my Patreon, will be in the description. Thank you guys for watching, and I will be seeing you guys again soon.